Welcome back to the Read It Rant podcast, where we read it, review it, and rant about it. And most importantly, we give authors a place to actually talk about the stories they've created. I'm your host, Tony, and tonight we're stepping into a world that was literally broken. Thousands of years ago, a great war shattered the world of Aerth. I might have pronounced that wrong. The, god, the gods managed to knit that world to get back together, but in doing so, magic was sealed away, and the gods turned their backs on what remained. Now, thousands of years later, darkness is beginning to rise again, and that is where Shattered Peace begins. As written by Russ, Shattered Peace launches the misfortune adventure saga and introduces us to an elven outcast carrying a secret and a rare free human with something to prove. Both have trained within the Monastery of the Leaf, both have graduated, and now they have to discover who they are when the training ends and the real world begins. This is a coming-age, found family, action-driven fantasy adventure inspired by homebrew 5e storytelling, and what really caught my attention about the premise is that Megan isn't simply asking us to watch heroes save the world. She's asking, what were these people like before anyone called them heroes? So tonight we're going back to that beginning. Megan, I got to welcome you to the Read It Rant podcast. Thank you for joining me. And I ask all this question, every author that comes on the podcast, who is Megan Russ when you're not writing fantasy novels?
I am a mother of three and a licensed massage therapist in the state of Nevada. So I kind of work for myself and I write around my massage schedule. And so I am a small business owner, mother, a pet mom, and a domestic abuse survivor and two-time cancer survivor. So which we will talk a little bit about as we get into the world of Aerth, is how we pronounce it.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry.
I've heard different pronunciations for it. They're all good.
I was reading some books by, I think it was Bound by the Sky. There was like Ether and then Aether, and then like everybody has this AE, like all these vowels, and I'm just like, But how far back does storytelling go for you? Were you always someone creating characters and imaginary worlds, or did writing come a lot later?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to cover up my maiden name. I have been writing since 1996, when I was published in a young authors conference when I was 8, in my school. My grandfather saw that I loved storytelling. I would make up imaginary stories for me and my brothers to play and kind of play out. And my grandfather saw my love for it and gave me his typewriter. And so at the age of 7, I was learning how to type on a typewriter. And then when my family got our home computer, I was learning through Mavis Beacon how to type correctly. And it was pretty much the sky's the limit at that point. So it's been a dream since then to be a published author, for sure.
Yeah, I remember my grandmother had a typewriter. It was in a little suitcase. There's this little black suitcase. It was about this big, and it was heavy as hell.
I still have my second one that was gifted to me when I was 12. It probably needs a new ribbon. And yeah, it's in a... let me see if I can get it out. It is heavy. And yeah, it's in this.
Yeah, I remember that.
My grandfather gave that one to me. Hardly used it because by that point we kind of had a computer I could use when my dad wasn't home. But yeah, I've kept that thing. It's managed to survive quite a bit in my life and 2 fires. So it's sticking around for the long haul.
And them things were made to last back in the day.
Yes.
Like everything else. When did writing change from, being that young author thing to something that you enjoyed doing and actually writing and publishing a book?
I tried writing different stories as a teenager and young adult. I wrote like Pokemon fan fiction. I tried my hand at Harry Potter fan fiction for a while, as a young author. Just kind of, you learn the ins and outs of storytelling through fan fiction, really. There's nothing wrong with fan fiction. I tried to publish my own little fantasy novel in 2016 when I was 17 years old. I didn't know anything about editing, marketing, everything that really goes into publishing that I do now. And so it failed horribly, but I see it as quite the learning experience. And then my life took a turn, as I said, and so life happened, and so I took quite the break from reading, writing, pretty much anything I really enjoyed doing for me. And when I was able to reset my life and have my own career and life calmed back down, I was able to say, I miss it. I want to go back to storytelling, so I started writing short stories. I was published in 2018 with a Facebook anthology. I don't know if that's still available or not, but it was a fantasy short story. I published a couple other short stories with them as well, and that was a fun experience. Took a little bit of a break, wrote stuff for myself, kind of honed my craft and what we call our voice and what I want my storytelling to feel like. And then I started writing some more short stories with another group. And then when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2024, my husband designed this D&D world for us to escape into. And when I was healthy again, I knew that these women had a story to tell. And so I went out to tell their story in full. And we're almost done with the first arc of this world. There will be very many, many more to come. So it's going to be quite.
So I got to ask, your Harry Potter fanfic, because I actually wrote some. Okay, I was 13 years. I think it was 11 or 12 when Harry Potter, the books actually. Obviously, no. I think the Sorcerer's Stone came out. Where was it? The 90s, the late 90s.
Late 90s.
Then,
I was exactly 11 years old when that came out. So I was.
Same here. I was born in 1990. So I was born in 90, and I know. I think in 99 or 2000 is when it actually, I think the book came out 2001, 2000.
I was going to say, I have my first edition over there. I could probably look.
I wish I had mine still. I'm gonna be honest. I might even do a reread of Harry Potter because it came out. Like, I remember we used to go to Borders at the midnight release before Borders shut down, but for every single book. And I got so into it. It was just... I remember when my mom had an old Gateway computer in junior high that we got with the desktop, and I would sit there and just type away and try to do Harry Potter fanfic because I was like super into the world. And I was like the Sandstone Academy, and I was in there freaking
I had my own academy out here in the Mojave Desert. Like, I was like, hidden out in the rocks,
I had some kind of dark academia, like Sicilian dark academia. It was, I don't remember, that file got destroyed. I was so pissed, but I got so far into it.
I'm pretty sure I had that saved on like a floppy disk or something, probably.
For real, like A drive, old school. I think the floppy I think it actually got destroyed. My mom's basement flooded.
And talking to midnight release, I miss those midnight book releases. I mean, they don't do those anymore. Even for these like big series, they still don't do those.
I just saw they're doing one for the new Sarah J. Maas book.
Are they her new ones? Yeah, well, that's not a surprise, as big as she is.
Yeah.
But yeah, like,
I mean, I'm going to be honest, I miss bookstores.
I think it was the fifth one I went and got at midnight because I was 16 at that point and I had my own money and I was like, I'm going to buy it myself. Got off work, went to the midnight release, went home, read it. I was so tired for school the next morning.
I was trying to binge read the fourth book and it was just...
so big.
The fourth book is really interesting, but there's a lot of downtime in that book. As well as the fifth book and the sixth book.
Yeah.
The sixth book was really... Remember a buddy of mine, his dad was like, I was reading the sixth book, man, it's like freaking Jerry Springer. I'm like, what? And I read it, and I'm like...
She's trying to tie up all of the personal loose ends, but at the same time, I feel like book 6 was a filler book.
It really was, and it was confusing, especially when she talked about, like, Voldemort's parents.
Like, why?
When they was talking about, like it was going back to Maul, and I'm going to be honest, like, it was just jumping around too much.
That
and
stuff went over my head the first time I read it.
Yo, that's why I want to do a reread, because, like, I was looking back on, like, how I was reading the fourth book, especially, when it talked about, like, Barty Crouch, or even in the third book, the chapter Talons and Tea Leaves. I thought, like, I didn't know what that meant. I was, like, 12. I didn't realize divination. I know what the freaking crap tarot cards were and tea leaves.
There's a lot of stuff hidden in those books for adults, I feel like.
There was a lot, like, a lot. And for a teenager reading that is nowhere near YA. That's like dark academia, because, like, I look at the story now and I'm reading it in
YA, yeah.
Yo, for real, like, I mean, like, I look at it now and I was like, dude, like, that's like dark academia. Like these parents are letting their kids go to this school where people are being murdered, and like they're like, yeah, we got a chamber of secrets. We can't figure it the hell out. Maybe the students can, and they're like, oh yeah, just go do it.
And it's
We're
just a
gonna put you in
normal
this
thing.
deadly
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a normal thing, and I'm like, where is Child Protective Services?
Well,
What
like,
the
yeah,
hell's
like,
going on?
book 4, as much as I love book 4, like, yeah, looking at it as an adult, I'm sorry, I'm letting my kid go to a high school where there's a tournament that he's signing away his life, possibly, and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, I was sitting there and I'm like, you got young kids fighting evil ass wizards. I'm like, as a parent, I have so many problems with this right
Which
now.
is why I made mine semi-adults.
So let's get into your world with is it Earth?
Earth, yeah, kind of like
Earth.
air we breathe, but yeah, Earth.
Earth. Okay. Because the history behind this world immediately caught my attention. We learned that thousands of years before the story, a great war actually broke the world. The gods repaired it, but magic became sealed in the world itself, and the gods essentially turned the backs on what remained. Where did the original idea for Earth come from?
My husband came up with a broken world when I was kind of losing my mind while I was going through treatment, and there is essentially like a cancer that is spreading through the world that our heroes are going to eventually face and hopefully fight against. The concept for it being 2,000-ish years after this great war and the removal of magic was mainly because we wanted to kind of play in a low magic D&D game. We wanted to do something a little bit different in a fantasy world where the characters had to depend on each other, their friends, kind of the advice of those around them versus some mystical power that is going to just save the day for them.
Why was it important that your world wasn't simply threatened with destruction, but had already survived destruction once before?
I feel like because then it makes the coming possible destruction a little bit more tangible. Because at this point, the gods have been gone, magic has been gone. So how do you fix a world with magic when there's no magic left? So if there's a threat of it breaking again, it feels a little bit more real than, well, there's this divine intervention that can happen and did happen once, but is it possible to happen again when supposedly all the magic is gone?
So I'm guessing because this great war, something catastrophic happened. What does the civilizations look like, thousands of years after that happened?
Now they look, you could compare them to Narnia-esque or Tolkien type setup now without magic. The main focus of the first series is the Tree Folk Nation, the Elven Nation, where they live in this ancient forest that survived the war. And these trees are essentially like the redwoods in California, so they are very tall, towering trees that the roots are as tall as the people, and they are trying to defend this country from the invading darker forces, obviously. And it was a decision to make it more of not quite medieval, but not industrialized quite yet. There is technology, but it's more of depending on the country you're in, the technology will be a little bit better versus the Tree Folk Nation. They are very much more connected to nature, so you're going to see them living in the trees or living in cabins that are hidden in the trees versus one of our southern countries that we'll go to later is more kind of Victorian houses with coal but no electricity, if that makes sense. They have these things called power crystals that are mined in a specific region that provide light by being plugged into the natural world, essentially.
I know one of the, speaking of the disappearance of magic, why did you want magics to be something in this world that this world essentially lost?
It was a punishment because, as you said, so I do have an actual book that covers the loss of magic. This is lore. It is the short story collection that came before. So it kind of builds on the world. It explains it a little bit better, but the decision to do that was because war is two-sided. They blame humans for the loss of magic in this world because the humans started this great world war by trying to expand beyond the borders that the gods gave them. And so in history, the victors write the history books as we know in our own world. And so when the gods sealed the world back together using magic and took it from the people blamed the humans, and so that kind of built obviously quite the conflict between humanity and all these other mythical species. And so without magic, how do these races now coexist? How do they come back from essentially the brink? And what is the aftermath and the I can't remember the word right now, but like the how people feel about those who they're blaming for what happened. So to take magic away was a choice of that conflict between people.
Do viewers have to, or do I have to read lore before you read Shattered Peace to understand the world?
No, there's enough sprinkled within Shattered Peace. You experience the world as our main characters Reed and Raylan do. And there is a little bit of like brief world building there in the prologue, but no, you do not have to understand the world to follow along with Shattered Peace because while the world breaking and that segregation between humans and everybody else is important to the story, they go into it in enough in Shattered Peace as far as the characters, the interactions and stuff. It builds on its own. This is more of it hints at other things that are coming in the series. It has 3 stories that happened in the past and 3 that happened in the present timeline, and so they kind of hints at things that are coming down the pipeline. So. And
I know, speaking of also magic that's been set away, does that really change the way you approach writing the genre?
A little bit. Without a fantasy without magic, or at least without people doing the magic, because there's definitely magic still in the world. Oh, excuse me. But it was definitely different because, yeah, I'm writing these martial scenes, these like martial combat scenes versus magical fight scenes. So I don't have to think about them summoning creatures or casting spells at each other. I actually have to think about how will this physically impact them? How does it physically impact whoever they're against or whatever thing they are against? They use like actual like weapons, so I had to kind of take all of that into account, as well as how the people are trained in the monastery, kind of how like Harry Potter we had our houses. The people in the monastery are divided into different paths depending on how they wanted to train, whether you wanted to be a healer or more combat oriented or like a mixture of both. There were different paths that they could test for, and so there are different fighting styles that you get to see, and so that was kind of fun to develop versus a magic system. We treated it very much like a magic system when me and my husband were working out the details of how this was going to work. But so it's kind of treated like a magic system, but yeah, I had to think about how it was physically impacting the characters versus just waving a magic wand.
And I know because the gods sealed the magic away, what interested you about exploring that relationship between mortals and gods that who may no longer be present in the world?
It interested me to explore that because kind of like in our own world, we have, depending on what religion you are, who you worship, it's all faith-based. So, is that manifestation of your faith going to be enough to carry you through when it's still on our own power that we have to do it? They're not going to come down and magically sweep us away and give us a lottery ticket to make our day a little better. So, it's what can they do while still believing in these absent gods to still kind of carry on that legacy that they left behind and still kind of carry on the traditions of either their ancestors, if they're elves, or kind of the newer traditions that their people have developed without magic, if they are the more mortal races. And so it's an interesting, because like our main character Reed worships the goddess of death, the raven goddess in this world, and I've used the raven as kind of an omen, so she sees this raven from time to time in the book, and it's kind of hints at, are the gods really gone, or are they still kind of watching over these characters as they're doing something, or is it just a raven and it's just kind of a coincidence? It's kind of left up to interpretation as of right now. But I like doing a lot of foreshadowing in my work, so I lay little breadcrumbs and stuff along the way for the readers to pay attention to.
Where did the concept for the Monastery of the Leaf come from, and why monks?
So let's see, monks first. Why monks? Since it was a D&D campaign and we were looking for a low magic campaign, we decided monks because they can kind of do the most without magic. Our next series is barbarians, and then we get rangers. So kind of we went with different classes that don't depend on magic as much as others. That, and we're both fans of like anime and the kind of like martial arts. We've both done martial arts in our past, and so we thought it would just be fun to start with monks. And so they're definitely not Shaolin monks.
I was thinking the same thing.
And that's what everybody thinks. They're like, oh, that doesn't sound very entertaining. It's monks. And no, these are essentially army. These are essentially the army of this world. They're just called monks because that's what they do, is this martial training. But they are really
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. They are very much more army soldiers. They're soldiers. They're people, and that's really what the story is about, is these people that have to come together to overcome something that is bigger than themselves. And it's this group of misfits. It's the 4th platoon. My husband was in the military, and he said, you get the 1st platoon, who are the best, the 2nd platoon, who are like, second best. They're going to come in when the 1st platoon's out. 3rd platoon, who is kind of, you're good enough. And then the 4th platoon, who's like, go over there. And so the 4th platoon is the misfits. And so that's kind of who we focused on, is this underappreciated group who, through their hard work and their teamwork, kind of come up in the ranks and start to prove that these misfits and these forgotten ones and these outcasts are a little bit better than people have been giving them credit for all these years. And then the second half of the question, I don't remember what the second half of the question. Oh, the Monastery of the Leaf. As I said, we are anime fans. Originally, our monastery was based off of the Hidden Leaf Village from Naruto. So we went with the Leaf Monastery, and the leaf just kind of stuck because Tree Folk Nation. So I didn't really change that. We just kind of changed all of the flavor because they live in a tree, not a hidden village. And then kind of similar inspiration with the martial combat. A lot of anime inspiration there. So.
And what does graduating from the Monastery of the Leaf actually mean emotionally for these young characters?
What does it mean for them? I mean, they're leaving behind their training days. For the most part, most of these monks were turned over to the monastery by their families as children, either that their families couldn't take care of an extra mouth to feed, or like they were a noble family who needs a little bit more clout in the nation, so we've got some kids in the military, or whatever reason, these kids are orphans or outcasts, and they show up at this monastery and get trained for 15, 20 years or more if you're an elf, because you don't really reach adulthood until you're like 100. And so they get trained for a while, but so they're leaving behind not only their childhood, but that security that comes with it. They've been, for the most part, protected by these experienced soldiers their whole lives. They haven't really seen any of the bad stuff yet. They hear rumors or they hear the epic stories from these soldiers, and now they're out of boot camp and they're essentially either put on the most boring duty and okay, well this isn't exciting at all, or they're put at the front lines and it's completely 180 from the relaxing studying life they have had. And for the first part of the book, you kind of get our main characters, Reed and Raylan, kind of get stuck on gate duty together because they're not trusted to go out and do anything important just yet. And so
teenagers.
Yeah, I mean, one is 18 and the other is 90 as an elf, so she's pretty young.
Jesus.
She's pretty young for an elf though. And so they're not trusted to go out and lead missions or go out and guard the shipment caravans or anything just yet. And so they're stuck on boring gate duty until boring gate duty becomes a little bit more exciting. So but yeah, it's definitely kind of an emotional time for them as far as that switch from childhood to adulthood and what that responsibility really means for them.
I'm guessing because they have an emotional connection with each other. Is there a romance trope in there?
Not in this one. Not in the first one.
Okay.
It is a slow burn romance up to the third book. They are, because he is human and she is an elf, and obviously humans are not looked nicely upon in this world because they are blamed for everything. Having feelings for a human is definitely taboo. And so she pushes those down for a long time, but you can kind of see the hints of it in book one. But she ends up getting with somebody else for a while, and then in book two, you kind of see them kind of drift a little bit apart as they're doing their own thing on this more dangerous mission they get sent on in book two. And then in book three, some stuff happens that I don't want to spoil. But yes, I've been working for this one scene for 2.5 books now. So
Are you almost done with book three?
I am. I reached the halfway point a week or so ago, and I took a break to write some short stories and kind of give myself a breather, and I'm just now getting back into it as far as the second half. But I've got some other scenes and stuff written in there too. So yeah, it's, I would say total about 3/4 of the way done, 2/3 of the way done right now. So
Is this going to be a trilogy or a series? Or
this one is a trilogy. With both main characters have backstories. So there's 5 books total for this one, and then lore, which really is by itself. And then the next arc will start after this third book comes out. So it's trilogy with 2 prequels, essentially.
Gotcha. And I know with fantasy, it often introduces characters once destiny is already knocked on their door. And I know Shattered Peace seems really interested in meeting these characters before that happens. Why did you want readers to meet these characters before their larger destiny begins?
So I tried. When I was originally going to tell their story, I was still writing short stories, and I was going to tell all of these heroes' stories via little short stories, little glimpses into cool moments in their lives, big action scenes, things that were very impactful on the world. But then that short story quickly became a 30,000 word scene, and that's not a short story anymore.
It's a small little book.
Yeah, and that's that scene that I have been writing toward for 1.5 years now. So I'm almost to the point, and I'm really excited to get there. But so yeah, I was gonna just do it that way. but then I realized these characters have a lot more to say than just their heroic deeds after, like I said, like you said, their call to destiny. Um, and so it was more of, I want you to be connected to these people before stuff starts going down, if that makes sense. Because I mean, I love picking up books and I get attached to a character, but then the book is over, and I don't know what happens with what happened before all of that. You know, especially those books that pick up right in the middle of an action scene.
I can't stand those.
I
rant
wasn't
about those
invested.
all.
Yeah, I wasn't invested in that character at all.
Like, I can't stand when all the tribe does that all the
Yeah,
time.
and
Like,
a lot of people have
oh
that
my
advice
God.
of, oh, you need to start in the action. It's like, why?
Who are these people?
Yeah, yeah. I don't.
Like,
I mean, I get like movies. Yeah, sure. You want to start
yeah.
with something, flashy to get you invested in the visual, but in a book, no, I want to know them. And for this, I want people to know, one, why Reed and Raylan face the prejudice that they face later on in their story, him being human, her being an elf, and then I want you guys to love them before I rip out your hearts even more later on, when stuff's really going down with them. And I mean, they've got this found family of misfits around them that are just these lovable characters that I wanted to be able to introduce people to, and so I wanted to go in depth with their story. And I mean, one reader told me that the first book could have been split into 3. I mean, yeah, lengthwise, but I don't know where I would split it, and then that would make this trilogy a 9-book series versus a 3-book series. So I want people to be invested in the characters before that, who were they before the gods told them they were something else, type thing.
And without giving away any of the elven character's secret, what can you tell us about this elven outcast and where they are emotionally when the story begins?
So that would be Reed. She has her own backstory, which explains a little bit more about her secret that she keeps, which does kind of get told throughout the story. And without too much spoilers, she is a moon elf, which is what I designed her to be. She is the only moon elf, just like he is the only human in this monastery, so she kind of stands out a little bit. And so she doesn't really keep the secret from her friends, so you do kind of get to know a little bit more about it, and then her backstory if people want to know even more about it, because I don't go into too much exposition in the book about it. It's just more, she just hints at it, that she has run away from her family, which is why her title is The Runaway. It's kind of hard to read backward, but it is The Runaway, and so she has run away from her family and this expectation that her very toxic family had for her, and this possible destiny that is hanging over her head, that she's not really avoiding, but at this point she thinks there is no way for it to come to, pass, since she has run away. So she kind of thinks that this prophecy that revolves around her doesn't matter anymore. And so she kind of keeps her past close to the vest, her true name close to the vest, and so it impacts her because she doesn't know who she can trust with her secret. And so that's kind of a subplot there of, if the wrong person knows who she actually is, will that cause problems for her further down the line?
And I know those. I mean, you put the 2 characters who have completely different personalities in the same monastery. What interests you about putting those 2 personalities together? Like, what brought you to do that?
We have a lot of different personalities that come up in the book, but yeah, she's very outgoing versus he is very introverted, and he wants to keep his distance from everybody. The dynamic of kind of that, not so much opposites attract, but that when you're with the right person, your true personality can come out and you can feel more comfortable being you. And so it's more of not so much complete opposite personalities, but they find that common ground while being different people. And so it's
And I know.
finding your person.
And do these characters like really understand themselves at the beginning of Shattered Peace? Because I know it seems like they're trying. I guess because they're teenagers technically. I have an inference that they might, or is it part of the story about discovering that what they believed about themselves inside the monastery doesn't really necessarily survive contact with the outside world?
Pretty much of yeah, they've spent so long in training, being told what to do pretty much every day, when to work out, when to study, when to be at class. You don't really have much time to think when you're being told what to do constantly, and so they haven't had as much of an opportunity to find out who they are with themselves. But yeah, when they get out of training and start to kind of interact with these other soldiers and see how these real soldiers are and how kind of crass they can be and how kind of loose they can be and just off the cuff and no, we're going to go have a sparring match, they kind of start to come out of their shells, and they do develop that self-awareness, because yeah, like you said, they're teenagers. While they are self-aware, they aren't so much self-developed just yet, if that makes sense. They haven't developed their own personality outside of, kind of like when we're kids, we haven't developed our own personality outside of our parents, outside of our family just yet. So
Your 20s is the point where you really find yourself.
yeah, especially like this. I mean, I kind of compare it to kind of like, yeah, you've just gone through basic with all these people your same age pretty much, and then you're thrown into the military with possibly everybody from the age of 40 down to the same age as you, and everybody has to get along, all these different personalities, and yeah, and you have and like I've been told my characters are too immature, and I'm like, you haven't been around the 60-year-old dude at the VA who's telling the war stories about what the heck they were doing. It's like, you guys were doing that? Like, no, maturity.
Speaking from like real life though. Like, speaking from real life, like, I think you go through high school and you're thrown in together. I mean, you grew up with these people all through 12 years. You just were in school with them. And then you graduate and you're thrown into, like, the chasm of just freaking the workforce. And you're with the 60-year-old guy that has a sense of humor of a 13-year-old. And then you're with a 40-year-old that's miserable, and a 20-year-old that's still trying to figure his life out, maybe a day drunk. You just never know.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I tried to show with this group of misfits of they are all so different, however they can work together as a team when it counts. And yeah, and kind of how these different personalities interact with each other, and yeah, just build this found family because of, yeah, like whether it's you go into the workforce, whether you go to college, whether you go into the military, if you find your people, you find your people, and that's kind of what it's about.
And I know, speaking of found family, it is one of those fantasy tropes that get hit incredibly hard when readers genuinely believe these characters really need each other. With this story, what does found family mean to you personally as a storyteller?
It took me a long time to find my people. I definitely had a group of friends in high school that I was very close with, but then after high school we drifted apart. And now that I've kind of rejoined the indie author community, finding your tribe, finding those people who are going to support you no matter what. I kind of wanted to tell that story, and that's kind of the story we wanted to tell together of when you find your tribe, they will lift you up. And that's kind of how it has affected me in the indie author community of finding different authors that I really connect with, who influenced my work, who helped me make it a little bit better before I released it to the world, who've inspired me to, put my work out there even when I don't think it's good enough. And so, I mean, that for me, and nowadays they're so long distance, they're not like here around me, giving me high fives or anything, but we can communicate over, Discord or TikTok or Facebook and, virtual high fives because we wrote a short story or we wrote 100 words today or we finished a chapter. And that sense of community that I have been able to build and the amazing people I have met. And that's kind of what that means to me. And I wanted to really represent what it can be when you have the right group of people.
And I know, speaking of everybody leaving after high school, I think it happens to like everybody, because I had a bunch of friends like coming right out of high school, and everybody grows up, and then you get older, and you're like, we're just not going to talk to each other anymore. Because
Right.
they got a family, they move away, and now you're like floating in the ocean, like, what do I do?
I've got one that I still communicate, and we only communicate on our birthdays. So he gets a text from me in December, and I get a text from him in February. That's like it.
All my friends like moved away, and they got married, and had kids,
Yep.
and it's a really sobering moment when you sit back and think about, everybody that moved on and how old you're getting, and it's just really humbling.
Yeah.
But you think found family relationships really become more interesting when the characters don't necessarily like each other immediately?
Yes. And there are some dynamics with that in here because as she's accepted pretty fast, being an elf, being an accepted race, she's accepted by these other people pretty fast, but he really has to prove himself. And so that kind of slows him down a little bit, but she's unwilling to kind of leave him behind because she's been assigned to him as his partner, and so she's like, no, you either accept both of us or we're gonna go do something else. And so it was like, I mean, not like to bring in a romance trope, but like the forced proximity friendship, no, he's gonna hang out here in the back and be that weird kid that eventually we're gonna let into the circle. So that's kind of
forced proximity is kind of heavy-handed.
Yeah.
you're in the same building all the time with each
day,
other.
yeah.
I think that's technically like forced proximity.
Yeah.
Like I can't go anywhere, so I'm like stuck with you. So I guess I gotta like you.
And that's
speaking of forced proximity, how do you create believable chemistry with characters that are actually forced to just like each other, like your parents? Like, stop fighting, just hug, and just stop fighting.
For me, it was, for some of the characters in the book, it was literally them fighting because that's what they do. They go and literally fight it out in the sparring ring for some of them. And I do kind of hint at some of these rivalries that have been going on for decades between some of these guys. They'll win one year and then they'll lose the next year in these like tournaments that they have, and so it's kind of a point of pride. But for me, for like the interactions, it was through the dialogue, through the shared experiences, through like Raylan is a healer. He's a mercy monk, so he's triage. He knows how to like treat wounds and stitch you up and reset your bone, and so he's kind of there, and so they either have to trust this guy to put something on their bruises or kind of deal with the pain. So which is it going to be? Are you going to suck it up and let him give you an ice pack or not? So It was through those shared experiences that they eventually kind of build that trust with this person that they didn't think they could trust before because of things they have been told. And so through him just being him, he kind of just proves them wrong.
I know one of the premises, or one of the plot, I think one of the talked about points in this book is that magic was sealed away.
Mm-hmm.
Does magic ever get unsealed away in this book?
Yes. Without giving too much away, it gets hinted at in book 2, which is one of my readers asked me flat out on a TikTok live once. He's like, I thought magic was dead. What was with the prologue? And I said, ha. And so it's there. It's leaking through the cracks because it's literally a broken world. So there's cracks and seams that the magic is seeping back through, and because of that, there are some things in the world for certain people to find and things to happen. And so yeah, when in book 3 we get to see book three's title is called Awakened Promise, so it is essentially the promise that the gods made when they left of this is going to come back, and so they built in a failsafe to make sure the world didn't actually break for good.
So what caused the gods to leave in the first place? And are they truly gone, or are they going to come back?
It's more of they are, because there's no magic, there's no way to kind of feel that divine presence anymore. So they're not really gone, they're more just sealed away from like a veil. I mean, that might be the best way to put it, of between the gods and the mortals there's a veil, and they just can't interact anymore as they did in the past. And we kind of get to see the reemergence of that through Reed and Raylan's story. As I said, that the Raven is a omen in the first book. In the second book, it's a little bit more involved. And then in the third book, she gets a little bit more inspired as things start to happen. But, so yeah, they are still there. And they are still kind of picking at the strings, but because magic is gone and sealed away, they don't have as much touch in the sandbox anymore.
How do you? I know you were talking about fighting scenes and stuff, and because there's no magic, how do you approach writing action scenes so they don't become nothing more than descriptions of people swinging weapons at each other? How do you make it feel like cinematic or like real?
I mean, hopefully I do. Hopefully I pull that off. For me, it is describing the feelings the characters are going through in the moment, describing them hitting the ground and like their arms shaking before they can get back up, the sense of the breath of the enemy, you know, on the back of their neck near the end when they're fighting these monsters, of like the stench in the air. I just kind of try to build more around the scene than just the action of, you know, there's this one pair of friends who I took inspiration from, Legolas and Gimli, with their count content, with their kill count, and what is the last?
Shall I find you a book?
Yeah, that these guys just. This one, it's more of the one really just wants to kill everything.
Still only counts as one.
Yeah, and then the other one is just like, okay, I'm being drug along for the ride, and so it's kind of like that. There are these different characters, and so yeah, so like that, there is this one guy who insists on, you know, destroying these guys, their enemy, as like gorily as possible, and so this other guy is like, no, right before he gets covered in goo. So yeah, there's these funny moments during these tense moments, and so I kind of try to break it up between just they swung the sword. So I try to take into account, yeah, I wouldn't want to read just that. So yeah, how would I want to read an action scene? Because I hate it when the action scene is cut over too.
Yeah, I've read a lot of overly descriptive action scenes. I'm like, okay, can we just get to the point? But I mean, I know with action scenes, if they're written right, it's very cinematic, but they can also read like an encyclopedia or history book describing like a historical battle.
Right.
But I'm going to be honest, my favorite part of The Lord of the Rings for me is Gimli and Legolas.
Yes.
Like, oh my god, like, should I describe it to you or should I find you with books?
and that's kind of they aren't exactly like that. Loxus and Tigranus aren't exactly like them, but they are definitely inspired by that friendship that they had by the end. These two definitely have that kind of friendship from the beginning because they already know each other. But yeah, it's just that kind of dynamic.
And like I see like Gimli and Legolas, their hatred of each other and their races came from Erebor, and the Lonely Mountain, and because Thranduil didn't help them, and then he was like they hated each other in the Fellowship, and then all of a sudden, I'll have no points, you're outscoring me.
Yeah.
I was just watching that when I was making dinner. It was weird.
I need to do a rewatch
God,
of those. Those are so good.
Yeah, extended editions, they're better.
Yes.
But your books have like a lot of dark horror in them and darkness. What kind of darkness should readers expect when they read this?
It's more of the descriptions once we get past all of the peaceful stuff in the beginning, because I always like to say I have to establish the peace before I can shatter it. So you kind of get to know them and their day-to-day life before the stuff hits the fan. And it gets dark near the end when people don't come home. There are these monsters called gnolls that are invading their forest, and they are bringing more than just them. They are bringing these worm creatures that are turning things into undead. And so if zombies and worms bother you, that would be a thing to avoid, because I get pretty descriptive with how these worms bring these things back to life. And so it gets dark and horror-esque. I've definitely read some darker fantasy, and mine, I've been told by some of my reviewers that mine is cozy fantasy, but I'm like, did you read the end?
Did you read the book, homie? Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't think so. Like,
and then book 2 gets really dark. I mean, Reed gets connected to somebody who does not make it home, and I rip your heart out with that scene. And there's some jump scares and stuff in book 2 as well. Apparently, one of my readers said they dropped their Kindle during a storm at a point during the book where there is a storm. And so I'm like, oh, that's a good warning to include. Do not read during a storm. Got it. So
I was reading M.A. Lay's, I think, his Project Evolved book 1, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I started it, and I'm like, this was a bad idea. Because something fell, and I was like, okay, no, we're going to bed, dude. I'm going to pray. Jesus, what the hell's going on?
And that's why it's I would love to be able to market it as a romance, but the romance doesn't take off it's such a slow burn that it's not really a romance. And it's not a cozy either, because it gets really dark. Because it might feel cozy at first, but it gets dark. So
the power goes out.
Yeah, yeah.
But how many? So I know you have the beginning of the book. You have to really set up the peaceful part of it. How many pages until it gets shattered, or until it gets to the point where that peace breaks?
Let's see. For the
Come with the hard questions.
Yeah, well, I can look it up.
I have it right here. Let me flip through my Rolodex.
Yes. Before the worms start coming in, 300 pages. But there's a lot of other... That's because there's a lot of dark stuff with the people, with the speciesism that Raylan faces and the antagonists that are within the monastery itself. So you get a lot of that, of kind of them playing flag football and them playing King of the Hill, because kind of based off of what do soldiers do in their downtime? They play football.
They lift weights and
they
drink
lift
beer.
weights. Yeah. They spar each other. Yeah, there's so it's what does day-to-day life look like before these guys are now thrown into it? They have to go on a real mission. They see what it actually means to be a soldier near the end, and then get sent on their own mission in book 2. So they're solo in book 2. Well, not solo, but they're away from the monastery.
Solo, you can't see him. No. But what was the hardest part of writing Shattered Peace?
The dynamic between Raylan and everybody else, I think. It was very hard for me to mistreat the character, because I love the character. So the speciesism he faces, and kind of how downtrodden he gets at points as people try to tell him he's not welcome. Um, the point where I made myself cry near the end was pretty rough. That was just emotional, but yeah, it was a struggle to be mean to Raylan. And then of course I wrote his backstory where I am super super mean to him. Um, but yeah, that was a struggle. And then some of just the dynamics between the different characters that uh, their conversations sometimes took a different turn than I would expect. Like a lot of readers or a lot of authors, we say our characters are living, breathing things in our brain who do what they want. And I have a full cast of characters that I have to wrangle sometimes, and some of those conversations go some interesting directions and cause conflicts I didn't expect to arise. And so those were always kind of fun to deal with, but at the same time difficult because it's not something I planned for. So
So, what would you tell the person listening right now who loves fantasy but hasn't discovered your work yet?
if you want a coming of age story where you get to really dive into the world, and it's a world that you can return to and find new things each time you read the book, this is the book for you, because I put a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of stuff that I hint at that might not even come up until like the third trilogy in this saga. Um, and so it's a very in-depth world. If you liked Narnia, if you liked Harry Potter, if you like R.A. Salvatore, you might like my work. It's a little bit more adult than all of those. Well, not R.A. Salvatore, but a little more adult than Harry Potter and
Yeah,
Narnia.
I'm about
But
to say.
but if you
Drizzt
like Salvatore, you will like mine because it is similarly inspired.
And I know you were talking about other work you got going on. What's next? What you have on the docket for like books you're writing or different works, or are you going to branch out into different genres? Are you writing more works in the series, or what do you got cooking?
More works in the series for sure. I'm currently between working on the second half of the third book. Um, I am working on short stories for Lore 2, which we have titled Lore: A Second Helping. So we get more short stories that kind of explain more stuff that's going on in the world and introduces characters we won't meet for a while. I also write short stories in like monthly contests that we have on TikTok. I was writing horror stories with a anthology group, but my work was kind of taking priority and I just couldn't keep up with their theme schedule. So I was like, I'm going to take a step back, focus on my own work. But I do like writing like the more darker horror stories for the short stories. I have some novellas planned, but really branching beyond fantasy and horror. I've been told I should write like an actual romance, but I don't know if I want to write just a flat romance. I like the action adventure. I like the hero's journey. So I'm a very big proprietor of the hero's journey. So, and that's definitely what this is.
I think contemporary romance is a very hard genre to write, in my opinion, because you have to mix romance with drama.
Yeah.
And you don't have, like... You have to be careful, too, because if you go off in a certain direction with contemporary romance, it turns into dark romance.
Yep.
So you have to keep it clean, but you also have to introduce, like, a lot of, like, a dramatic persona to the story. And I think it's really hard to do that, especially because there's so much competition out there.
Yeah, that and romance readers expect you to follow that romance formula, that third act breakup, that and the like you said, the drama. And don't get me wrong, I love writing drama. I write a lot of drama between our characters in Shattered Peace and the other rest of the trilogy.
The dramatic elements of that storytelling, so you don't just have romance.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of, if you don't follow, I know I have a lot of friends that are that read contemporary romance, and I'm like, I'm sick and tired of the same formula.
Right.
Or I get the other one where like, they didn't follow the formula. The writing fell flat on its face. It was boring. She just wouldn't make up her mind. I'm like, okay, thank God I don't write that genre, because
exactly.
I don't know how some authors do it. Like that's a gift.
Agreed.
What other like, so you're not gonna write any dark romance or any horror or anything?
No, not dark romance. Horror, I might write some more. My very first short story collection that I self-published is a horror short story collection. It's been compared to like Goosebumps and Tales from the Crypt level because just didn't go very dark with it. Uh, for me,
The
I don't
Crypt
know. I
Keeper
like
was dark.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there were some dark stories in. I'll grab it off my shelf. The shadows of the Great Basin. So I focus on. I live in the Great Basin of Nevada, and so I took legends and stuff from around here and turned them into like ghost stories. So they've been compared to that type of level. But yeah, I loved the Crypt Keeper. I watched that Twilight Zone, all that stuff. I love those type of levels.
The Crypt Keeper gave me nightmares when I was a kid. That guy freaked me out. He would come on the TV randomly and like I'm like, oh man, I'm not gonna sleep tonight, thank you. Like, but most like, where can everybody find you? Follow your work and pick up a copy of Shattered Peaks.
I have a TikTok shop. They are available on Amazon. I believe, yeah, most of them are available on Barnes and Noble. Um, and so, like, if you want a signed copy, I have my TikTok shop, and they are the same price as they are on Amazon, except for they come obviously signed and with a bookmark and with some swag. So
And
you get all the
probably in
bonuses.
better condition too.
Yeah, probably in better condition. Although I've stopped ordering my own author copies from Amazon because they don't know how to ship their own books. So I'm gonna be
Oh
getting them
my
from
god, I've heard so
Ingram
many
only
horror
now.
stories.
Oh yeah,
Oh my god.
I ordered. I think I was telling you I was waiting on copies for Broken Hope for book
Mm-hmm.
2 for like a month. For
Mm-hmm.
only 5 copies, they got here and only 3 of them were in good condition. So I'm like, I waited a month and a half for these books. They were supposed to have been here by release and they weren't.
I have another author named Sammy who she wrote The Severance, and she said I ordered 3 boxes of books, like 3 big boxes of like author copies, just because she sends them, and she's like, I'd rather just give them to readers and they pay me and I just send them to them because it's easier, because Amazon is just you never know what they're gonna get, and she's like, I ordered 3 big boxes of books and I had to send them all back.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, no, I've managed to keep, I mean, those 3, but yeah, usually about half, maybe, if I'm lucky. I don't know how a company that started as a book selling company doesn't know how to package books, but they have gotten horrible. So yeah, I'm only ordering my books from Ingram now. So
I want to figure out where to buy books other than Amazon, because like, even like trad books, it doesn't like, it doesn't matter what book it is.
Oh, yeah.
Another fun fact about Amazon: there's no more next day or 2-day shipping.
right?
It's not
What
a
are we
popular,
paying for anymore?
Yeah, for real. Like, and I learned that if it's not a popular book, if they don't stock it at their fulfillment centers, that's why it takes so long to get here.
Yep.
And then my favorite part is because I buy a lot of indie work. If the book is from an author that's like in a series that they've done, and it's been like years since they wrote it, it has to come directly from a third-party seller, and it might not be here for a month. I just ordered the Forever Avalon series by Mark Peugeot, and his book, The Outlander, was supposed to be here. That's book 3 in that series. And there's no tracking information, no nothing.
Wow.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Amazon, they started out as a
Ridiculous.
book place, and I don't know what happened.
I don't
really
either.
Like,
But yeah, so that's why I would tell everybody, if you want it, you might as well just buy it from me, because you get it signed, it's the same exact price, and it comes with the bookmark and stickers and all gift wrapped and with character art. So yeah, like the first book comes with character art done by another indie author. So and then the second book comes with a different character art. So yeah, you get stuff if you order it from me. So you might as well pay the same price.
do you have a website?
I do, but it doesn't have a point of sale on it. It's just mostly like my blog and updates on my writing and sneak peeks and stuff like that for what's coming. Because there is definitely many more trilogies and a couple duologies planned for this world. So I've got at least 37 books planned out right now, including those that are published.
Where can people follow you or to message you to buy copies from you?
TikTok is the easiest place because that's where I'm most active. I do have a YouTube, but I don't post on it. I need to actually start doing my indie author reviews over on there too. But that's where I'm most active is TikTok. I do have Facebook and Instagram, but I'm not on there right now. I'm taking a social media break from those two. I plan on going back at the beginning of the year and kind of revamping everything. So, yep, for now. TikTok, if you want to reach out via YouTube, I do check that pretty often. So, email.
Before we get going, I have 2 questions.
Yes.
You got to give me a price if you have a copy for me. I'd love to get you that moolah. Since I want a copy of the second book.
Yes.
I forgot to ask you about that today. We could probably handle that tomorrow because it's
Absolutely.
like almost midnight. Yeah. But if you have copies, I'd love to get one from you. And do you have a release date for the third book yet? Like a proposed release date?
Not yet. I'm hoping I can release it for my birthday in February. And if it's not ready by then it will probably be a April release for my husband's birthday. Because the next one actually coming out will be Raylan's backstory. This one is open for ARC until September 13th, so anybody who's seeing that right now can contact me via TikTok and ask for an ARC if they want a digital ARC. The Freed comes out October 13th, and so the world gets to know Raylan a little bit better then. And so yeah, I'm hoping book 3 will come out spring of 2027, as long as I keep the momentum I have right now going. It'll be on track. So.
Can people buy like all the prequels and novellas from you personally, or are they available on Amazon as well? Or?
Yeah, all of them are available on Amazon. Everything's on KU because I want it to be accessible to you guys. Physical copies. The only one you cannot buy right now is this one because it's not out yet. But I will have pre-release copies for sale next month. But yeah, everything else. Book 1. I've got 3 copies of book 2, so if you get one of them, I'll have 2 copies on hand. And then, yeah, I've got Lore and The Runaway on hand. And Lore and The Runaway are actually on audio as well. And I did recently sign the contract for book 1 to become an audiobook as well. So that is very exciting. Book 1 will be on audio
Who's
here
the narrator?
soon. Rebecca Hettinger from Academy of Voices. And she is actually the same narrator who did The Runaway, so she brought Reed to life originally, and I loved the way she did her story, and so I said, hey, are you guys willing to do a project that is 3 times as big? And she said, yes, I want books that big under my belt, and so we signed the contract, and she was formatting it for her audio narration last weekend. So,
Sweet.
So yeah, fingers crossed we'll have more news on that soon. So yeah, everything.
Heck yeah, well,
yeah. Everything's available. Oh, I was going to say everything is available, yeah.
Sweet. Well, send me your payment info on the Tiki-Taki.
Absolutely.
So that tomorrow we can get all that taken care of. But I want to thank you for coming on the Read It Rant podcast and giving us a look behind Shattered Peace in the world of Aerith. There's something I really appreciate about the fundamental question behind this story. Fantasy gives us legends, it gives us warriors, it gives us people standing against impossible darkness. While the fate of entire worlds, hangs in the balance, that every legendary hero was once somebody who had absolutely no idea what was coming. Before the battles and the destiny and anyone knew their name, there was simply a person taking that first step into a much larger world, and that's where Shattered Peace invites us to begin. An elven outcast with a secret, a free human with something to prove, 2 young monks leaving the only training ground they've known, and a world that has already been shattered once, with magic that disappeared, gods who walked away, and somewhere beyond the horizon, darkness is beginning to rise again. The question isn't simply whether Aerith needs heroes, it's whether these characters can become them before it's too late. Alright? This has been the Read It Rant podcast. I'm your host, Tony. If you're interested in coming-of-age fantasy, found family, action-driven stories, tabletop-inspired storytelling, and watching ordinary characters take their first steps toward becoming something legendary, check out Megan Russ's Shattered Peace and the Misfortune Adventure Saga. And until next time, read it, review it, rant about it, embrace the rant. Read It and Rant is out!